someone reading this at the time would have taken it immediately, I think, as an example proving her case, rather than what we might think of it now as a kind of eruption of her interiority.
No, this is an eruption.
Yes.
So it may be a way in which she is actually breaking free of those very codes that you opened by invoking. That is, all this regulation, all these norms. At the same time, she's sort of participating in them at the same time. And that kind of complex tension between obeying the regulations and finding a way to bring out what must be her interior struggle.
Or knowing where the conventions just exhaust themselves, aren't going to do the job.
Right. Or leave her little wiggle room.
How did you all read seeming and fancy?
Yeah.
Sort of those modifications.
Yeah, seeming fancy.
I mean, because there's the obvious...
Was snatched from Afric's fancied happy seat.
And
Yeah.
I,
And
young and like by seeming cruel fate.
Well, it seemed to me as though the thing she's ostensibly doing is gesturing towards Felix culpa, the idea of a happy fall, the notion that something bad seems to happen. The original idea is the fall of Adam and Eve in Christianity, but in fact the result of this fall, of this unhappy event, is something good. And here, that seems to be the rhetorical...
That we can be saved.
Right, exactly. And that seems to be the rhetorical stance that she's preparing for, but she never quite follows through on the adjective's promise of seeming cruel fate, Afric's fancied happy seat. It seems this way, that's what we thought it was, but by the end of the stanza, she ends by saying, and can I then but pray others may never feel tyrannic sway. What exactly is that tyrannic sway? Is that the hand that seized her from Africa and brought her here?
Or the person on the other side.
Exactly. So that ambiguity is not resolved in a way that it seems she would. She might easily have put a couplet in saying, but actually this fancy or this seeming was a tyrannic sway and now I've been set free. But she doesn't actually do that.
It's unassimilable. I mean, I do think that this, in a poet who doesn't often show us how she's feeling, what she's remembering, right? Memory, Americans aren't doing memory. It's like Americans aren't doing memory, I'm not doing memory either. Right? We're doing future. A great memoryless people, but there she does have to remember. I do want to say that before we lose this, that your point about the fortunate fall, about Felix culpa, is one of those that helps us understand this poet that much more, right? If we bring 21st century assumptions and we come without the knowledge of the fortunate fall to this poem, we might just think, she's been bought and sold intellectually and psychologically as well as physically. She's saying Africa's a fancied happy seat. She's trying to please the oppressor, right? That's what we read. And yet that all of our earthly conditions are, mere types or images of a state of affairs that's different than it looks. Your intervention helps us really, really to see.
I'm also interested just structurally in the poem, it's 3 stanzas, in that this particular stanza is couched in the middle, right? So that if, in the process of reading the entire poem, which we didn't do, right? But, the focus is on the Earl of Dartmouth and on the Rhetoric of Revolution, and then comes the stanza in which we switch, but then we switch back out again, right? So that really thinking about the strategies of speaking out and then retreating, right? That again, from a 21st century perspective, we might wish in a kind of racial revolutionary imagination, right?
Yeah.
That she had just written the second stanza, right? And that she had dissolved the rhetorical quandaries that she leaves us with, right? In order to, in some ways, through poetry, resolve racial tensions or a history of racial
declare,
strife.
right, that's right.
Why
can't you do that?
Right, which is a wild pressure to put on poetry, right? And on one poet, right?
It's interesting here too, because on the one hand, with our 21st century prejudices, we can look at that and say she's burying herself in here, right? She's taking her true, real feelings, life story, and just passing through it in the middle of the poem. But we can also look at it and say this is a poem about American freedom. This is a poem about the political climate and times to come, and that public voice, it needs to begin and end with that. Mm-hmm. That this private point is important too, but if she started with it or ended with it, it would sort of overtake the rest of what she's trying to say in her address to the public.